First of all, this meeting is being recorded. I hope that's okay with everyone. Welcome tonight to the Theravada session with the Buddhist Society. And we're very lucky to have Ajahn Candasiri with us tonight, who will lead the class. And well, she was just saying to me she's been a nun for a very long time. I'm afraid I don't have the exact number of years, but you're probably all familiar with her from previous classes. And she's currently residing at Amaravati Monastery. Good evening.
Oh, this is the first time I've been here for the class for quite some time now, so I'm a little bit rusty. So hopefully it'll all go smoothly. The other thing just to mention is that we were having some problems. We were kind of testing it out with the image freezing. So if that happens, we'll just have to be rather patient and wait till it comes unfrozen. But I'm very pleased to have this opportunity to be with you all. And for the format for the evening, what I usually like to do is to have a short puja, followed by an opportunity for you to request the precepts. And I think Imogen is going to ask on your behalf for the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts. And then I'll offer a little bit of meditation guidance and we'll sit quietly together. And then a short Dhamma talk, Dhamma reflection, and then an opportunity for questions. So quite a lot of things. But as I said, it's really lovely to be here and lovely to have this opportunity to make a space for Dhamma in our lives. I know most of you don't live in a monastery. In fact, maybe none of you live in a monastery except me. So there may not be so many reminders in your daily life. So I like that we have this occasion, this opportunity to really focus on what's most important for us in our lives as human beings. So we'll begin with the puja, and we'll have it up on the screen. We're going to chant in Pali this evening, and we'll do the dedication of offerings and then the recollection of the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. We won't be doing the supreme praise, so keeping it a little bit shorter than it might be otherwise. So I'll start off by lighting candles and incense, and we also have flowers on the shrine as the third offering. Yaso Bhagavaratam Samma Sambuddho Sawakato Yena Bhagavata Dhammo Supatipanno Yasa Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Dhammayam Bhagavantang Sadhammang Sasanghang Imehi Sakare Hiyatarahang Aropite Hiyabhipojayama Satuno Bhante Bhagava Suchira Parini Bhutopi Pachima Janakanupam Pamanasa Ime sakare tu katapanna karapute patikan hatu amha kangti karatang itaya sukhaya arahang samma sambuddho bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Soakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Andamayam Buddhassa Bhagavato Pupapaganama Karang Karoma Sahi Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Andamayam Buddha Satinayam Karoma Sahi Tangko Pana Bhagavantang Ewan Kalayano Kiti Sato Hapukato Itipiso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vichacharana Sampanno Sugato Lokavidu Anuttaro Purisadhamma Sarati Sata Deva Manusanang Bhutto Bhagavati Andamayam Dhamma Vituting Andamayam Dhamma Nusatinayam Karoma Sahe Suakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaliko Edipasiko Opanahiko Pachatam Vedita Vinyuhiti Damayang Sankhanu Satinayang Karoma Sahe Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Uchupatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Yayapatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Samicipatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Yadidang Chatari Purisa Yugani Yata Purisa Pokala Esa Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Ahuneyo Pahuneyo Takineyo Hanchali Karaniyo Anuttarang Punya Ketang Lokasati. Wow. So now we have the opportunity for the request to be made for the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts, which, as you know, are the basic structure, the basic form of our practices as Buddhists. The refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, or wisdom, truth, goodness, and the undertaking to live in certain ways, to avoid doing certain things that can cause harm to ourselves and to others. So refraining from deliberately killing anything, deliberately stealing, taking what hasn't been given to us, what isn't rightfully ours, refraining from sexual misconduct, from false and harmful speech, and from intoxication, the use of intoxicants. So these very simple, basic guidelines that in some ways are just common sense, but they do make life a lot more wonderful when we put effort into restraining ourselves from following these courses of speech and behavior that cause harm, that exploit others in different ways. So if you'd like to make the request now, Imogen, and then I shall offer these refuges and precepts.
Maya Maye Tisaranena Saha Pancha Silani Yachama Dutiyam Pi Maya Maye Tisaranena Saha Pancha Silani Yachama Tatyam Pi Maya Maye Tisaranena Saha Pancha Silani Yachama.
So now I'll recite the three. I'll recite Namo Tassa 3 times, and then you recite it 3 times at home, and then we'll go line by line with the refuges and the precepts. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa.
Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa.
Buddhang Saranam Gacchami.
Buddham Saranam Gacchami.
Dhammang Saranam Gacchami.
Dhammam Saranam Gacchami.
Sanghang Saranam Gacchami.
Sangham Saranam Gacchami.
Dutiyampi Buddhang Saranam Gacchami.
Dutiyampi Buddham Saranam Gacchami.
Dutiyampi Dhammang Saranam Gacchami.
Dutiyampi Dhammam Saranam Gacchami.
Dutiyampi Sanghang Saranam Gacchami.
Dutiyampi Sangham Saranam Gacchami.
Tatiyampi Buddhang Saranam Gacchami.
Tatyampi Buddham Saranam Gacchami.
Tatyampi Dhammang Saranam Gacchami.
Tatyampi Dhammam Saranam Gacchami.
Tatyampi Sanghang Saranam Gacchami.
Tatyampi Sangham Saranam Gacchami.
Saranakkamana Nititang.
Ama Aye.
Panatipata Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami.
Anatipata Veramani Sikkhapadam Samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature.
Adinadana Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami.
Adinadana Veramani Sikapadam Samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given.
Kame sumi chachara Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami.
Kame sumichachara Veramani Sikapadam Samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct.
I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct.
Musawada Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami.
Musawada Veramani Sikapadam Samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from lying.
I undertake the precept to refrain from lying.
Sura Miraya Majapamadhatana Veramani Sikapadang Samadhiyami.
Suramiraya Majapamadhatana Veramani Sikapadam Samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness.
I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness.
Imani panchasika padani silena sugatinyanti silena boga sampada silena nibutinyanti tasma silang vitsotaye.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
So it's very, very good. I always feel glad at the thought of people undertaking to live in these ways, and on the understanding that, of course, we're not always able to keep the precepts perfectly, but at least to have that intention is something that is so significant in the world today. Just intending to live harmlessly, carefully, responsibly. Unfortunately, we have not very many examples, but at least we ourselves can be an example for others. Just intending to live carefully. It's already a very, very good step in the right direction. And obviously, as you know, these are precepts that we can take over and over again. So in our monastery, we have an opportunity every fortnight to take our precepts, to consider areas where maybe we've slipped up or not been quite careful enough with certain things, and a chance to make amends, to acknowledge where we've gone wrong, and with a kind of attitude of a sense of self-respect, that we're making a wholesome effort to do our best, rather than beating ourselves up or feeling absolutely terrible about it, or that we're a hopeless case. We can always start afresh or start again. And the lovely passage in the scriptures where the story about how people noticing how radiant the disciples of the Buddha were as they went about their alms round, and the Buddha said, well, they don't have a lot of regret, they don't lament about the past, they're not over concerned about the future, they live the present moment with present moment awareness. Therefore, they're radiant. They're not carrying a lot of regrets or too fearful about the future, but it's being present with things as they are, which brings us to our meditation now. We'll have a period probably between 20 minutes and 30 minutes, just sitting quietly and remembering that our aim in meditation is simply to be present. We're not trying to get into some particular special state, but rather simply to sit quietly and to notice how things are for us. If the mind is very stirred up and agitated, then we notice that. If the mind is calm and quiet, we notice that, we can enjoy that. But rather than grasping hold of that state, trying to make it to last longer, we simply enjoy it as it is in this moment. So meditation is very much about being present, not just present physically, but present with our minds as well. So I'll offer a little bit of guidance as we go along. First of all, just find yourself a comfortable sitting position. I'm going to change into the cross-legged position. It's fine if you're more comfortable sitting on a chair. I'd suggest you try to find a nice upright posture so you're not too comfortable, not too relaxed, because that can very easily lead into sleepiness, particularly if the mind feels very peaceful. It's quite a short step from being rather peaceful to being a little bit snoozy, particularly as probably some of you are quite tired as we get towards the end of the day. So these are all things to be taken into account when we prepare ourselves for meditation. So having established the posture, we bring awareness into the body. So the body becomes our focus for the time being. It's one of the foundations of mindfulness, it's the body. And so to start off with just noticing that we've got a body and how the body feels. If it's feeling a little bit tense in places, you may find around your shoulders or your face, your hands, your belly, there can be some tension. So we take a little time just to take the awareness around the body and, as it were, mentally set it at ease, mentally relax throughout the body. So make sure you're sitting up nice and straight so that if you have the eyes open, some of you might like to sit with the eyes open, that you're looking straight ahead, not down at the floor too much or up at the ceiling, but just, calm gaze straight ahead. And many of you may prefer to sit with the eyes closed, and that's also fine. But try to maintain a head position so that the eyes are looking straight ahead, pointing straight ahead. You can even imagine slightly pushing up from the crown of the head. If you touch the crown and just feel yourself pushing upwards through the crown. Give a sense of that nice, alert, poised sitting position. And just taking a little time just to notice how it is for you right now. Towards the end of the day, the Buddhist Society class, sitting in front of your computer, your laptop, your iPhone, whatever it is that you have, your device, and looking at the image of Ajahn Candasiri at Amaravati in front of a shrine. So bring a full awareness, really reflecting on where we are and how we are. Noticing how the mind is. Maybe there's a sense of gladness. This is a time for us to really recollect our Buddhist practice. and all that means for us, the possibility of liberating the heart from all of our struggles and suffering. It's a real possibility that the Buddha pointed to. It's something we can feel glad about as we sit together here. Or perhaps your mind is memories arising, what's been happening during the day, interactions, events, maybe mistakes we've made, or maybe things we've done well. Or the mind may go into planning for the future, worrying about the future, some difficult challenge ahead of us. So we can notice all of these mind objects, these thoughts, memories, plans that may arise. But our practice is to learn how to observe these things without getting drawn into them, involving ourselves with them. So you may find it helpful to have a kind of more neutral focus for the awareness. Usually the most usual practice is to focus on the breath. To bring the awareness to the sensation of the body breathing. Some of you may have done this in a particular way for many years, and so I suggest you continue with whatever your habitual practice is, whether focusing at the nostrils, into the nose, noticing the sensation of the current of air as it enters and leaves the body, or whether having a fuller bodily sense of the body breathing, noticing the movement of the wall of the trunk, chest, the abdomen, using that as the focus. We use the breath because this is something that is with us wherever we go. As long as we're alive, we're breathing. And this is something that in some ways is a very ordinary experience. Usually we don't notice it very much. But in our meditation, we can use it as an anchor for the awareness, something to keep us steadily present, rather than pulled into the past by our memories, our regrets, our happy memories, whatever they may be, or pulled into the future, anticipating something that hasn't happened yet, but that may happen. Instead, we put the effort, the focus into what's happening now. So what's happening now is the body is sitting here and it's breathing. Maybe breathing very deeply, long, slow breathing in and out, or it may be more shallow. Or as the mind, as the body, the mind settle even more, the breath may become very refined, barely discernible. So we make this a time to be with things as they are right now. Not a time for making lists or planning, but rather simply noticing how things are for us. And if the mind does get carried away on an interesting thought or plan or memory, is that we're no longer properly present, then our presence is the next breath away, we can immediately come back. It's not a problem. Just re-establish that present moment awareness. Always with an attitude of calmness and quiet, firm, calm. Just directing the awareness, just like you would if you were trying to teach a young child to do some task. And just beginning, willing to just keep coming back over and over again, without fuss, without fluster, without irritation, without a sense of having failed. Or just, okay, come back, come back. Some of you may find it helpful to have a word or a phrase, kind of a mantra that you link with the breath, just as an additional support, a reminder. Buddhist word, Bud as you breathe in, Do as you breathe out, or a secular word or phrase, breathing in, breathing out, here, now. If you find yourself feeling a little bit dozy, then it's the most helpful thing is to open your eyes and also just to put more attention onto the posture. Make sure you're sitting up nice and straight. With the breath, with the body, as it is here, now. Seeing it as a time that you can allow the mind to be rather simple, Just being with this breath, with this moment, setting aside all that thinking, remembering, planning, worrying, analyzing. Just one breath. That's all. to stay present. And you notice a lot of sound happening around you, outside in the street, or maybe you're hearing the bird song, and airplanes here at Amaravati. Just stay present with that. Allow things to be the way they are. Don't struggle. This is how it is right now. It's like this. Just one breath. And then the next breath.
Sister, you're muted.
There I am. Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you now. Thank you.
Good. So, what I was pointing to was talking about the one of the most significant aspects of the Buddhist teaching is the teaching on the law of karma. That what we do, say, and think has an effect. And when we do, say, or think in a wholesome, mindful, wise, skillful way, compassionate way, the result tends to be beneficial for ourselves and for others. When, on the other hand, we focus our mind or we think or act in ways that are harmful, this has an unbeneficial effect. It causes harm both to ourselves and to others. In our lives, and particularly, I think, when you're living in a city and living, say, with other people, you can't always choose what kind of things you're going to see or hear. As you walk out on the street, there are all these buses with advertisements on the sides. If you have a television set and it's on, then there's all kinds of advertising and music and dramas of one kind or another, or the news, just watching, listening to the news. There are many things, many impressions that the mind receives in the course of the day. Conversations that you have, people that you speak with, things that you do. These things all have an effect. And I find that one of the interesting aspects of my practice is how I choose to respond to these various different kinds of stimulation. You know, what I choose to focus on, how I focus on it. As we practice meditation, as our practice develops, we begin to appreciate that we can make choices about our responses to things that happen to us. We're not necessarily victims. Certainly, we can. There'll be times when we experience pain and difficult situations, but even how we respond to that has an effect. We can really resent it. We can feel very sorry for ourselves. We can blame somebody else or blame the situation that we're in for the unpleasant experiences that we may be having, which is an understandable response. But an important question for us as part of our practice is to notice the effect of the different responses to what happens to us. And then to begin to experiment to see if we can actually exercise some choice in how we respond. You know, whether we hold on to a feeling of resentment or ill will or anger about something that somebody has done or said, or whether we're able to bring up an attitude of forgiveness, of understanding, of compassion, of kindness. Because one of the things I've noticed is that when I hold on to ill will or negativity or a sense of blaming or judging somebody else, there may be a kind of ego satisfaction, a sense of righteousness. I'm right, and they did something wrong. I can be very critical and judging or blaming of somebody else. But I notice that doesn't actually make me feel good in a kind of deep way. As I said, there may be an ego gratification, but in terms of when I come to sit in meditation, if I reflect on my day, it doesn't give a sense of, yeah, that was really good, that was good, what happened. I'm glad that I responded like that. What makes me feel much more glad is if I can avoid responding to things in a harsh, judgmental, blaming, criticizing way. If I can actually turn the situation around to one of understanding, to one of kindness. It doesn't mean that we condone foolishness on the part of anybody, whether somebody close to us or a colleague at work or the society. There's plenty of things that we hear about or read about in the papers. You just think, oh dear, why do they have to do that? And I found that over the years of practice, of contemplating my own suffering in my own life, when people do foolish, harmful things, they hurt other people, but more importantly, they hurt themselves. You think, well, don't they realize, can't they see that what they're doing is not helping anybody, least of all themselves? Of course, many of these responses are habitual, which in some ways is how karma works. We respond to a situation in one way, and it's like making a track. And if we keep making tracks in a certain direction, then the mind will very easily keep going back to the same tracks. So we call this like habitual responses. So sometimes our practice can be actually beginning to recognize our habitual patterns of speech, of thinking, of behavior. What do we automatically do when somebody says something or does something? Where does the mind go? I remember one time when I was living with somebody, this was before I became a nun, and I was living with someone in Oxford, and there were certain things that they did that I found annoying. And every time the incident happened, I can't actually remember any specific things, but every time a particular thing happened, my mind would immediately kind of tense up, and there'd be a kind of judgment in there. And sometimes I would say something, sometimes I wouldn't, but my whole system would kind of become tense. And this was somebody who was quite sensitive, and I'm sure they picked up on it. Maybe they didn't quite know what I was cross about, but they certainly knew I was cross about something, even if I wasn't saying. And I remember one time realizing that this was something that happened and deciding to kind of prepare myself. Well, when I go back home, and when I do this thing, then that person will do this thing, and then I'll feel tense. So having kind of just verbalized it in my mind as a kind of way of preparing that, because I knew this person very well, I knew their habits, I knew what they were likely to do. So it's deciding to not react, deciding just to, like in my mind, just to say that they're doing this, they're saying that, whatever it was. And practicing with just seeing if this thing could happen, and rather than the tensing up, the habitual tensing up, there could be just a calm acknowledgement of what it was that was happening. It took a little bit of ingenuity, I suppose, creativity, figuring out this strategy. But it turned a very frustrating, irritating thing into something that was more like a game. And it became fun. You know, sometimes I would manage to not tense up, not say something mean. Sometimes I could be restrained and restrain my mind, not let my mind go into an inner reaction or a kind of inner tirade. Sometimes I'd fail, it wouldn't work out, and there'd be the kind of old pattern of unfolding of things. We get into a tiff, perhaps. So what I would encourage you, is if you do notice that there are certain inner reactions to things, to see if you can invent some kind of a strategy, so that you don't keep reacting. It's present, and there's a sense of restraint. It doesn't have to go into a kind of inner tirade about something that someone's done or said. And this is something you can do with yourself as well, because as again in our lives, all of us have habits. We have things that we do or say that we realize that we shouldn't do or say that. And every time we do or say it, we think, oh, you shouldn't have said that. That was a stupid thing. Why can you never learn? Why can't I stop doing that? You may have things like that. I certainly have a few things like that. And I mean, the reason that you can't stop doing it is because every time you do it, this reaction happens. You haven't learned how to bring awareness to the habit. So, I mean, this is a very, very simple little thing that we can do as part of our daily life practice. And as I said, it can be good fun. So rather than feeling hopeless or blaming yourself or judging the other person, just I used to think that the law of karma was incredibly complicated and difficult. And in some ways it is. In fact, the Buddha said this is one of the things that we can't really fathom. One of the imponderables. There are certain imponderables that the Buddha said, don't even try to work that one out. But I think if we take it in a very simple, very kind of moment by moment kind of way, rather than trying to understand the whole of our life and why it is the way it is, if we can just break it down into very simple, manageable chunks, then we get a bit of a sense of it. It's interesting that the teachings that the Buddha offers us, he gives very, very clear guidelines. I often reflect on verses from the Dhammapada, which for years I totally ignored. It seemed like too simple, sort of like beginner's stuff. I thought I was rather advanced, not a beginner. But actually, that's not true. That it's very simple, but it's very profound. So even just the first couple of verses, if for one who acts or speaks with a mind that is defiled or that is caught up in unwholesome reactions to things, filled with greed, hatred, and delusion, unhappiness will follow, just the same way as tracks. The wheel track follows the hoofprint of the ox that draws the cart, something like that. Similarly, if we act or speak with a mind that is not weighed down with thoughts of ill will or harmful or greedy, lustful thoughts, if we come from a place of lightness, of forgiveness, of joyfulness, support, friendliness, then happiness will follow us, like our never departing shadow. So, as I said, it sounds incredibly simple. It's a very exacting practice because these habits of mind go very deep. Ever since we've been little, we've grown up, we've learned how to do things in a particular way, learned how to respond to situations in a particular way. And some of the ways that we respond are helpful if we've had a fortunate, helpful upbringing and guidance through our lives. And some are much less helpful. So it's about learning how to recognize the less helpful and to begin to devise strategies. We have this ways of responding to situations. And these are things that we can develop as our practice deepens, as we become more aware of our thought, how we respond, how we react to things. Then little by little, we can develop confidence in devising strategies that will lead us to a much more joyful way of being, both for ourselves and for all beings, those who we're close to, and all beings everywhere will in some way be touched by our lives as we gently and relentlessly cultivate the wholesome and set aside what is less helpful, less beneficial. So these are a few words that I'd like to offer for your consideration this evening. And I'm very happy now to take some time for any questions that you may have. Those of you who would like to stay with us and ask questions, you can either raise your virtual hand and Imogen will unmute you, or you can unmute yourself. Or if you prefer to send a message into the chat box, Imogen will read out your messages and I can have a go at responding to any doubts or queries, ponderings. Thank you. It can be about anything I've said or about anything to do with your practice or meditation. Question about meditation posture. Could you read that out, Imogen?
Of course. I find it really hard to be in the posture for more than 5 minutes as I have a bad back. Perhaps there's any advice about that.
Very much so. Please don't force it. If your back is causing you problems when you're sitting in a particular position, then you need to find a strategy for dealing with that. So I know there are traditions of meditation where there's a huge emphasis placed on how you sit and having a perfect sitting position. But what I would strongly encourage is to find a posture that is not going to put a strain on your body. So some people find standing helpful. Some people find it better to lie down. Some people find a more kind of easeful sitting position works better for them, with the back more supported. So if you do have a physical limitation or difficulty, then if you can sit for 5 minutes without strain or pain, then that can be good, because if you are able to sit up nice and straight, it can bring a real sense of alertness and vigor into the mind. But if it's going to put an unnecessary strain on the system, then please find a position that's comfortable. So if you have to sit, in an armchair, relax, that's okay. If you need to lie down on the floor, that's okay. The important thing is being present, is staying alert, staying mindful, and aware of what your mind is doing. You can experiment, like if you have physical discomfort. The other thing that you can do is just experiment with relaxing the body. So sometimes just bringing awareness to the body, breathing through different parts of the body can release the tension and relieve pain. Particularly, I find it helpful around the knees. Sometimes sitting cross-legged, the knees can become very painful. But I think for each one of us, everybody is different, and so if you have severe back pain and are not able to sit for very long, then please find a posture that does work for you. That's absolutely fine. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. There is a message that says thank you already, so I'm sure it was. I have two other questions have come through. The first one's quite short, and the second one's quite long. I'll read them both together, perhaps, though. The first one was, please would you repeat the word for the in and out breath? And then the second one, there are particular set of circumstances which arise, and my response always brings suffering. Try as I might to overcome this and respond differently, I think I have not found a way of doing that yet. Is there any more advice, please, on changing patterns?
Okay. So the first question, I don't think I actually said it, but the Buddhist term for mindfulness of in and out breathing is anapanasati. Ana, or I think ana is breathing in, pana breathing out. Sati is mindfulness. So awareness of in and out breathing. And this is a practice that was recommended by the Buddha for almost any kind of circumstances. And we can do it sitting formally as we did this evening, or we can also do it in our daily lives. It's a very helpful way of establishing present moment awareness. So, even in a very stressful, very difficult situation, we can bring awareness to the breath, particularly the out breath, actually, if this is a lot of stress. I find it's helpful. It's almost as though you're breathing through, calming, settling the whole system. So that's a slightly longer answer to a shorter question. The other question, that's a very interesting one. If I've understood correctly, you're talking about a situation where you habitually respond in a particular way to a particular set of circumstances, and the result is inevitably unfortunate in terms of your own well-being and perhaps the well-being of others around you. And a sense of kind of almost hopelessness I picked up in terms of trying to devise a strategy that can help you to respond differently. I think one thing that's important to notice when this happens, or at least to strongly suspect when this happens, is that there may be a certain amount of aversion, negativity that arises. If you do something or say something in a particular situation, a feeling of, oh, I shouldn't have done that, a feeling of judgment or criticism of yourself, or possibly of blaming the other person, criticism or judgment of them. And this negativity, this judgment, is actually what's making it difficult for you, because it's a kind of attachment. So we tend to think of attachment as holding on to something that we like. Oh, I'm so attached to this, I like it so much. But attachment can also be about things that we really hate, that we really don't like. That's another kind of attachment, this desire to get rid of what we dislike. And So what I would encourage you in relation to this particular set of circumstances is to be very, very vigilant and to examine closely and to see whether there is some aversion in there. It's completely understandable if there is, because unpleasant mind states, unpleasant people, unpleasant situations are unpleasant, and you don't want them. This is an automatic response. If there's something unpleasant, there's a very wonderful teaching that the Buddha gave called dependent origination. And there's a part of it which says, an unpleasant condition, Vedana, conditions desire, and desire conditions clinging or attachment. So something unpleasant, you immediately don't want it, and you immediately struggle with it to try to get rid of it, which in some strange way seems to perpetuate it. So what needs to happen is to learn how to work with that reaction, how to avoid the mind going into reaction. And this requires a kind of subtler kind of strategy, I'd suggest. And I'm just trying to think of something what I could offer in terms of an idea about how to do it. One of the things that I do sometimes is, rather than focusing on the other person, like the trigger, the thing that is upsetting or difficult, or focusing on what I'm going to do or say about it, how I need to respond in order for it not to create, make things worse, is to actually bring the awareness to this being here as it is right now, with a heart of kindness. So, supposing for myself, I might even use my name. So, oh Candasiri, you're really upset about this, aren't you? Or Candasiri, you're really afraid that you're going to do that thing that's going to make it worse again. So almost like counseling yourself, like counseling a dear friend, rather than putting a pressure on yourself to not make a mistake. The feeling, I mustn't make a mistake, I've got to get it right. I don't want to make things worse. It's, oh, Candasiri, you're really afraid of making things worse, aren't you? So bringing a heart of kindness towards this being here, establishing present moment awareness, coming to the breath, coming to the body, relaxing the face, relaxing the shoulders, noticing how the belly is. All these ways of just bringing the awareness into the present moment, rather than going up into the head and trying to think of a strategy. Just kind of feel your way into this attitude of kindliness and well-wishing. Often when we think about metta bhavana, practice of kindness, we assume that the Buddha meant being kind to people out there. And certainly it's not that we shouldn't be kind to people out there. But what I've found in my practice, and maybe some of you found something similar, is that what's actually even more important is to be kind to this being here. Because as I cultivate that attitude of kindness and wishing well, and almost like trying to sort of create a sense of inner ease, almost like massaging the heart. So there's a sense of inner ease. And when we're at ease and when we're present, when we're fully present in a situation, the response can only be in accordance with Dhamma, in accordance with truth, and can only bring a wholesome, a satisfactory result. The reason that we make mistakes is because we go up into our head, we're frightened, we're concerned, or we're angry, or we're irritated, and we lose touch with the present moment. We're not actually here. So this is why our practice of meditation is really fundamental in terms of just learning how to be here, how to be present, and for our responses to come from that place of presence, rather than an idea or a reaction in the head. So I'm wondering if that kind of hits the spot. Is that helpful? Or would you like me to say more about that? We've time for one more question, perhaps, if there's anything else that anyone would like to ask about.
The person who asked that question has said thank you, that is most helpful. And there is a raised hand. So
Okay.
Perhaps unmute yourself, Eliana.
Would you like to?
Hi.
Okay.
Do you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Yes. I want to say thank you because a couple of weeks ago I was exhausted and I participated in a meditation on Saturday and you gave some advice and I tried to practice and it was helpful. So I want to say thank you.
Good.
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. No more questions. Well, how about if we finish by chanting the Buddha's words on loving kindness? Reflections on universal well-being, sorry. Page 41, I was wrong. And this is a very helpful chant, actually, a very powerful reflection. We can think that it's about being free from hostility and ill will from others, but actually it's free from hostility and ill will towards others and towards ourselves, and to be free from anxiety, that we're able to relax and trust in Dhamma. So sometimes easier said than done. Anyway, let's do this chant together. Now let us chant the reflection on universal well-being. May I abide in well-being, in freedom from affliction, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may I maintain well-being in myself. May everyone abide in well-being, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may they maintain well-being in themselves. May all beings be released from all suffering, and may they not be parted from the good fortune they have attained. When they act upon intention, all beings are the owners of their action and inherit its results. Their future is born from such action, companion to such action, and its results will be their home. All actions with intention, be they skillful or harmful, of such acts they will be the heirs. And we can end the evening with the closing homage. We'll chant that in Pali. Arahant Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Swagato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅgho Saṅghang Namami. So thank you very much, and I wish you well. And please make sure you make some time each day just to sit quietly with yourselves in a calm and friendly way. Don't worry if your mind doesn't go completely quiet. Not many people can do that, but just being aware of how your mind is, relaxing the body, and just enjoying quiet moments is a very helpful thing to do each day. And I think I'm going to be back in a month or so, but in the meantime, the classes will continue every week. Ajahn Sundra will be here, I know, for a few of the sessions. And so please go well. Thank you.
Thank you.